Welcome back to Road To Redline. I'm Andy.
I'm Joe.
I'm Lee.
How are we all doing?
Very well, thanks, Andy. How are you?
Very good.
Yeah, good. Remoting it up again.
We are remoting up indeed, and we've got our first panellist for this episode, haven't we? Who's also dialing in remotely, of course.
He is. I think he'll be along pretty soon.
Excellent. And I think tonight we're going to have a little chat about bumps and prangs, if I'm right.
Yeah, I've got my list ready.
How long have we got for this? Yeah, that's the other thing, isn't it?
Not long enough, I think, looking at my list.
Yeah, mine's a lot longer than I thought. I started putting pen to paper and I was like, oh, shit, really, have I had that many?
So on today's episode of Road to Redline, we've got a local fella to us here on the South Coast in the UK. Goes by the name of Mr. Chuck Richards. How are you doing, Chuck?
Very good, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Mr. Chair. So for those that don't know or might be listening to us for the first time, as well as getting extended interviews on the podcast, we're also open Road to Redline to some panellist appearances. And Chuck is essentially our first panellist appearance of the podcast. So it's something where basically we just get you involved, and normally we'd ask you to bring the biscuits, Chuck, but alas, we're doing this remotely, aren't we, at the moment? So
you brought them and I'm eating them.
Yeah, exactly. So you owe us some chocolate digestives, I think, is the biscuit of choice usually. But you have a fascinating Porsche history. You've owned a fair few of them. You have some halo cars in there, and what you did with one of them will actually form a little bit of what we'll talk about later on in terms of dings.
More than a ding.
Yeah. But if you wouldn't mind, first of all, Chuck, by maybe telling people at home a little bit about you. Who the hell are you, basically?
So for me, I've always been interested in cars and motorbikes, anything with a bit of petrol involved. And I've started life with the older cars, which were all rust heaps. But if you wanted a fast car, you had to get a Jag like the S1E9. So I progressed to Jags and that, and my uncle had a 911, which I loved and didn't know what it was, but I loved it. And that started the love affair with 911s. Had a family, came back, went to Jersey, bought my first 911, and loved it, absolutely loved it. All my friends back in the Midlands hate it because they're in Jags and Rollers. That's their big limo styles, which is nice, but not necessarily for me. I've just been around cars, and I think the cars for me, Porsche-wise, Jersey was an interesting place to be.
When did you live in Jersey, Chuck?
So I lived there late 90s, 2 years, started a new IT business, which went well. And it was great because Jersey was like Porsche everywhere. A lot of financial people with lots of bonus checks to spend. And there's a very famous guy called Joe Santos, who I think is in Australia now. He left there early 2000s, but he was the guy who would supply non-new second-hand Porsches and a lot of 3.6 Turbo 2s, which I would go and look at in his showroom in the evening when we're walking around town. I'd do a detour to his showroom and they were just gorgeous. But all his cars were immaculate. And I had a chat with him and he said, first 911, he said, get an SC because it was a true Porsche. The Carreras became more accountant-led decisions where the early Porsches were engineering-led. And it turned out a good decision because I really have, it's the longest I've ever kept a car, 20 odd years now. But
Is that the one that you still got now?
Yeah, still got the one. So the story behind that is I used to play football for Veterans Jersey, and coming home one night, there was like the shaft of light into this car showroom, and there stood this blue, I thought it was a Turbo 1, and sort of braked and smashed the car into the wall and run out to have a look at it, but it turned out to be an SC, and it's got it's the Jersey demonstrator in 81. It's the 3 litre 208 or 204 brake, but it's got the whale tail on it, front spoiler, turbo wheels, sport suspension. And I'd looked at loads and loads of cars, and that one just, the altitude was right. It just sat there on the road, and I loved it. And it wasn't brown, it wasn't red, it wasn't white, it wasn't black. It's this light metallic blue. So that's where it started. And I've owned it since, and I was driving it around Jersey along with all the other 911s. Just a great car. But no, it came back to the UK. And I used it as my only car I got, because I had a company car over there as well. And I drove to Nottingham for 3 months in it every week and never missed a beat, no backaches or anything. Loved it. 25 to the gallon. It would just sit in fifth gear all at the motorway and never changed it. So that was the life with it. Started that, then got another car, and it went into the weekend warrior status. Yeah. I then really wanted a turbo, because in Jersey my friends had got turbo 2, and in fact my friend had a turbo 1 which was like 17,000 miles on it back in the 90s, and that'd be what would that be, 80s car, early 80s turbo 1s.
So 930?
Yeah, white one it was.
Okay, yeah. What year?
I'm trying to think. It would be, I don't know, it's 4 or 5 speed now. I'm trying to think of the year of it, but I just remember all the cars this Joe Santos would find is the miles were stupidly low. My friend's Carrera got 9,000 on the clock, so it's a 89 or 87 Carrera with 9,000 miles on the clock, and this was 98, 10-year-old car.
That's because no one can bloody go anywhere over there, isn't it?
Well, that leads you on to Le Mans.
Oh, okay.
So the Le Mans weekend would bring out all these GT2s. One guy had a complete carbon-bodied GT2. He was a lawyer in Jersey. And you'd all meet up on the ferry, and he just took cash with him to pay the fines on the way down to Le Mans. But no, there was a lot of Porsches. I can't, every type, style you could think of. But the Turbo 2 just stuck in my mind, and I came back and worked in London for a bit, earned a bit of cash, and I found one in Hamburg. So it's black roof, or triple black as the Americans say, black roof, black body, black interior. 93, I think it was. And I bought it in 2003, so it's 10-year-old. Chapper bought it for his wife's 50th, and she got an SL Merc now, and this was for sale. And yeah, stunning car. I drove it back from Hamburg, which is quite a long way. Didn't realise it was a good 12-hour drive home. But touched 175 on the Autobahn, which was regulated too. But yeah, it was absolutely spotless, beautiful, beautiful car. So that was we'll park that one for a minute, and then literally.
Yes, well played.
But then I bought, working in London, didn't really need a car, but got car allowance. So I bought what was it, Carrera 4996 Tip, which was cabriolet, which was lovely. Really nice car. Had that. Bought it with 30,000, put 60,000 miles on it. Had it a long time. Crikey, got rid of that. Trying to think where else we go. I think it was the 997 after that. I can't remember what else. Memory's going now. But car-wise, yeah. But so I've had a few, and certainly the 997 to me put Porsche back on the map. The 996 was nice, but I saw it as a transformational car from the air-cooled to the liquid, and not a big fan of the headlights look. And of course, the 997 brought all that back, and the Carrera 4S I've got is as quick as my Turbo 2, well, quicker than my Turbo 2, which is quite incredible how things have progressed.
That 997 as well. I mean, we joke that has had a better or more pampered life than most human beings on this earth. But, I mean, that really is an incredible nick, isn't it?
Yeah, another story really is, do I need it? No, I just wanted it when I saw it. I just looked at it and thought, Jesus Christ, in this guy's 10-car garage with heated floor, full Porsche Bournemouth service history, bless him. I think I bought it just after a major service, and major service was every fluid, every consumable part you could think of in red, black interior, loads of options on it. Just a lovely, lovely car. It's the sort of car you want to find, because all of them have a history of service one way or another. But this one was just incredible. Just a few stone chips, I think, and that's it. But it's another keeper really. The problem is I'm running out of space. But
I was going to say, the funny thing with you is every week, didn't you? You're always thinking, might change the cars up, might get something new. You're very good at holding on to them, and poor Linda.
Well, it's still got the Jag, you see. That's the thing, the old XJR, which is performance figures around the Porsche 911s, which is quite amusing for a 2-ton motor. But there's another story. But
well, I have to say, and my thoughts on this, Chuck, that in terms of like a 2-car Porsche garage, with your SC, which to my mind is one of the best examples of a 911 SC I've ever seen, that and the 997 Gen 1 4S in Guards Red as well, that is surely the perfect 2 Porsche garage, isn't it? Like good classic for the weekend, and then a good, reliable, comfortable everyday 911 for the week.
Well, you talk about reliability, brings in Italy then, doesn't it? Because the old SC did the Italian trip and didn't miss a beat. So I just think that's it with Porsches, isn't it? I think there's a golden era up to probably late 80s where they were engineered by people who cared about performance and form, fit, function. Because people get in my 911 and they sort of touch the throttle and it just revs so freely, it makes people literally jump, think they've broken it or something. But that's where the power is. It just revs so freely. It's only 200 brake, but it's very tractable, keeps up with anything that's a bit sporty still. And yeah, I love it to bits. The trip down to Italy was, cruising at 90 to the ton because I didn't want to push it any more than that. I could have done. But we arrived at the same place at the same time, went up the Alps or whatever the mountain ranges were, stuck in traffic in Italy, baking away, but it did it. And, I don't think I put more than a cup of oil in it. So, excellent car.
There's a good little story on the back of that, actually, wasn't there? Because I remember we cruised down there. Lee, you had what were you in at the time? Was it a 991?
Funnily enough, yeah, that was a Carrera T.
Was it?
It was, yeah, after us talking about it on a previous episode, but it was... it was a different Carrera T. It wasn't the yellow one I had a couple of weeks back. This was a red press car that was a T, wasn't it?
I just remember it being quite funny that your sort of the support car became the SC that didn't miss a beat, and then the Carrera T had a bit of a wobble.
Yeah, exactly. And I distinctly remember because that T had like 5,000 miles on the clock, hadn't it? And turns out the water pump going on those is not uncommon, shall we say. But yes, I'll never forget being at the side of the auto route in France and seeing this little SC coming up, and I thought, "Oh, magic, salvation at last!" As water's pissing out the bottom of the Carrera T, and I'll never forget your waves, Joe and Chuck, as you just carried on straight past and left us there. So yeah, cheers for that.
I can see that smile just beaming out the window.
Yeah, we were the water carrier, but we didn't need any water, was the joke.
But you're right. In all seriousness, it says a lot that the car that was way over 30 years, 35 years of age at the time, and that did not miss a beat, did it?
No,
that's incredible.
It was good. And going up the twist backs was a bit heavy because there's no power steering, and it's got 7 J's on the front, so it was a bit of you went to bed at night with a pain in the shoulder blades, but next day it was all fun again. So yeah, good memories, absolutely good pictures. The whole trip was just brilliant, and no concerns about the car at all.
Something quite special, I think, doing that sort of trip in an older Porsche. I mean, the new ones just do it without thinking about it, and all those sort of little reservations,
Yeah.
Well,
some do.
yeah, some.
But I had the 997 at the time. We could have gone in that. We've also got a track. The car we shared with Joe. We've got the old Cayman as well. So there was a choice, but I thought that was, if you're going to do a trip like that, it's just memories. You know what I mean? It's fantastic.
That is a really good point, actually. So we know on this podcast so far that Joe has the 987 track car and that he shares it with someone, but people might not know that person is you, Chuck.
Yeah, I'm the one that does everything. Joe just turns up. If that's
I was going to say, who pays the bills then in this scenario?
Well, we haven't flipped the coin this year. I think I'm losing.
Don't get him started, Jesus.
No, but it's just, to me, Porsche. I don't care if you want a car. Porsche just don't build a bad one. You know, I know the 924s and 944s don't get mentioned, but you know, in the day and even now, great car. 914, great car. You know, they're just, you know, you just sort your budget out and go and buy one. That's what it's about. And it's a shame the air coolers have just got so expensive, because it does worry you that someone could just nick it for the parts. You know what I mean? It's not nicking it because it's a car. They just know the engine. I mean, mine's got a fresh engine gearbox in it. God knows how much that's worth. But
yeah, and where do you live?
Yeah. I can't give your numbers out on this podcast because my wife might hear it. So
excellent. Well, no. I think we should touch on the incident with the Turbo 2, the 964 Turbo. That was the 3.6 you had, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was specifically went after the 3.6. Couldn't get a right-hand drive for love nor money. Bought this one over the phone, sort of December time, and had to wait for the snow to clear to pick it up. You know, it was that sort of time. But what a car! What a lovely looking car. I was washing it one day. A guy in a Lamborghini pulled up and just said, "I can have a look at your car." And he just said the whole look of the car, especially the back end of it, you know, it is womanly and it is lovely, you know. So this guy stops in his Lamborghini to look at my turbo. But I think it was wider, Mercedes at the time, and it was a C class. It was wider than that. The back end is so wide on them. But people know, you know, I go to some of the Porsche club meets at the time, not many, but people would know it's a 3.6, typical German car, debadged. So they've got no badges on it at all.
Was it a coupe or a cab you had?
I had the coupe.
Oh, it was a coupe.
Yeah. So it's, but yeah, just it was just one of those cars that you can take and drive and just at the road. Really, kids on motorbikes would come up to me for a race and stuff like that, and if I saw them coming, I'd boot it, and they'd struggle then to catch me, which was quite amusing. But yeah, lovely car, and I think it's one of those today that I think the 997 does fill the gap. I've obviously a bit of a black armband day when I parked it, yeah, I think if I could get another one, even a 3.3, I'd have it. I think they're just a pretty car.
Yeah, they are lovely. I think particularly the 3.6 though, Chuck. That's it's considered a Halo 911, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. Unicorn is another one because you just don't see them.
No, like the perpetual criticism, and I think it's an unfair criticism with the 964 3.3 turbo is it was the 930 engine in a 964 body, whereas the 3.6 by that stage when it came out 93 was the 964 turbo that, you know, for the 964 generation, wasn't it? Really, absolutely stunning. You what? Sorry,
how much difference is there in the drive between the two?
It's a good question, to be honest with you. I don't actually think I've driven a turbo 3.3 to find out. I've driven a couple of 3.6s, but they do look different because the 3.6 obviously got the speedline wheels and whatnot. So you can tell them apart to look at. But yeah, in terms of how they drive, don't actually know.
It's a different engine though, isn't it? They're 3.6 forerunner to the 993s, but it you know, it's massive turbo lag, but that was fun. Massive turbo on it. But it's just a torque. I can't remember the numbers, but you could put your boot down anywhere and it'd just throw you forward. It was incredible. But the 3.3 is, again, not a bad car at all. You know, if one of those turned up, I'd be happy.
Yeah, and this is what I mean. It is an unfair criticism because it is a fabulous car, but the 3.6 it's like you say, it's a Halo car. 1,437 of them built, relatively low numbers, and I don't think, well, there's one less now, isn't there, Chuck? If we may touch on that at all tentatively. We did want to talk about our own dings and whatnot, and as a panellist, welcome to the group. So
I think I can win.
Go on, then,
It's the prize for the biggest story.
Tell us all how you stuffed it then.
So, working in London, I'm not home a lot, and there was a Porsche meet in Lyndhurst the night I was back. So took the old turbo out for a go. It was wet, but it's not really a problem. Had the meeting, came back, and instead of coming back down the spur road into Bournemouth, I took the long way home to drive and hit this roundabout, and the car just sort of went surprisingly sideways, which was a bit of a shock. And I'd sort of held it sideways for quite a long way, as the policeman said, and hit a 60-foot high street, dual carriageway, street light just at the side of the roundabout, which took the wing off, the wheel off, smashed the door closed, and that spun me round into a small bus shelter. This was 11 o'clock at night, and demolished that. And the car sat there with a wheel off, just ticking over that, I could back it out and drive it off, sort of thing. So it was a living, breathing thing. But anyway, cops turned up. Somebody had rang, cracked sternum and wrists and smashed face and that later. Airbags are not airbags, folks. They're air bricks. So they took the car away, and the police were quite nice and just said, "Do you live locally?" And I said, "Yeah, down in Poole." He said, "Would you know this roundabout?" And I said, "Well, yeah." He said, "Well, it's infamous it's the first roundabout out of London that lorries brake and drop all their gunge and stuff onto the road, and then as they accelerate and judder, they drop it on the way out of the roundabout. So it's like an ice skating ring," which explained why the car went sideways so quickly. And I wasn't doing big speed through it, but I straight lined it because there's no one around. And that was it, and broke my heart, really. I mean, that was a keeper, and it bent the roof, really. That was the death of it. So if it hadn't done the roof, I would have absolutely repaired it. But the only piece I've got left, if anyone's listening who's got my old car, because I'm sure it's back on the road, I've got the front brace, the aluminium brace is the only bit I've kept as a souvenir from that car, because it snapped both ends of the top turrets and just loose brace legs just hanging around in the boot at the front. So that was the end of it. It was did quite a bit of damage without really a lot of effort. So
proper job.
Yeah, but it's sad because it's probably the best car I've ever had in terms of that time, in its rarity and appeal. The 997, as I say, fills the gap, but it's not Turbo 2. But then 997's got some other elements to it. But yeah, that was it. I'm trying to think. 2000 I had a couple of years, I think. So 2004-05 is when the accident happened, and that was it. And
well, look, obviously with these scenarios, it could have been a lot worse, and obviously we're glad that you're still here today, mate, and that we can actually look back and have a giggle on it, but in all seriousness, that could have gone a lot worse.
Yeah, as I say, it wasn't a big speed crash, but it's the old story: is don't hit a tree or a lamppost because they don't move, and that was what made it a lot worse.
I agree with that.
Did you manage to take the lamppost down with it, or did that stay standing?
No, they. It's funny. They closed the road, and they got a big petrol-driven grinder to chop it down like a tree because it was bent over about 60 degrees. So I think it whipped about 10 foot up in the air. But the other thing is I had phone calls from the local council because the insurance hadn't paid out for the bus shelter, which, if anyone wants to know, they're $3,000. $3,000. So, but the other part is I had trouble with the insurance company because they saw it as a 3-3, where back in 2000 there was a few of them around. But there was a company, I should remember their name, but I was ringing around trying to get evidence on, look, a 3.6 and a 3.3 are totally different. And this dealer kindly wrote a letter saying, look, left-hand drive makes no difference, because that was one of their things, and it's a cheaper car. And secondly, he says, I deal in Porsches and I've never seen or own a black or triple black. They've always got, white with purple interior or something. So the insurance company eventually paid out, but nowhere near what it's worth today. So carry on working, really. That's the thing. But so oil on the road, and like within a month they put that grit on the roundabout. So I should really have taken it all up with the local council, really, rather than my insurance company. So crasharoo.
Crasharoo.
Well, I've got pictures if you want to see it.
Well, if you don't mind, maybe we'll put them on the Road to Redline Instagram page, just so that people can have an ogle.
Yeah.
Have you got before and after pictures, or is it just before?
I got before you've had, I think but I can do that. Yeah, but it is sad. It's
off the bus shelter.
Yeah. It's got my name on it. Actually, they've named it after me. If that's all right.
For Chuck Richards, he loved this spot.
Yeah, like parking here.
Yeah. Oh dear, Andy, you must have judging by the amount of cars you've had, you must have had a ton of wax, surely. And I've seen you driving as well.
I was thinking earlier today. I was thinking how many have I had, and then I started putting pen to paper, and it's a lot more than I thought. But not many of them were my fault, I must say.
That old one.
Yeah. Has anybody else had many?
Is it 911 based though, or is it just other?
No. Touch wood, no 911 based. I've only had the one 911, so. Yeah, no, load of old rubbish cars. lots of different faults on different cars.
Have you had any big prangs and anything else, Chuck, or was that the big one?
No, I've had some amusing situations, because I've driven a lot with my career, and one that sticks in my mind, when I was in Jersey, we had a meeting with Dell in Basingstoke, and we're pushing on back to the ferry, and it was raining. And for some reason, the road was empty, but this person had actually braked. So I slammed on the brakes, and the hire car went sideways, because I seem to like sideways for some reason. And the only gap I'd got was between the fast lane and the barrier and grass. So I took to that. I managed to get the car straight, because the guy behind me was sliding all over the place into the back of me. So I escaped, and the look on this guy's face as I overtook him on the grass was a bit. And my colleague in the car was shivering all the way down to the thing. And then we give the car back, and he said, "How did you get grass in the front of the car?" So, but yeah, that was a getaway for me. That should have been I should have been in the back of somebody, but. So that was an amusing one that nobody was hurt, so that was good.
Joe, what about you? You must have some stories and the 1,000+ cars.
Yeah, I think I similar sort of thing. I started making a list, and I suddenly got to about 10 and thought, I better stop there.
It starts getting a bit embarrassing, doesn't it?
It is. Suddenly you think you're all right at driving, and then you think, well, okay, I've had a few too many. I mean, the Porsche one that I get loads of stick for is the GT4. I mean, that was I quite smugly on my way to my first ever trip to Spa, and I got about 5 miles outside of Poole, and end up sticking it into the old concrete barrier, which wasn't too clever. So that wasn't much fun.
So
but again, that was
on it. Just aquaplaning.
Yeah, I mean, I do stick to my story. I got a picture somewhere. It was, it was lashing it down, and it was, it just hit literally a lake of water, and next thing it's going round in circles and knocked the front off it, and very nearly ended up in a big ditch, which was fun. So that wasn't too clever. That was a shame. That was
the worst bit about that, Joe, was because we were at Spa, weren't we, at the time, and you were coming out to Spa to meet us for a track day for a couple of days worth of track days, wasn't it? And you messaged in the morning, and you were like, "Guys, I'm not going to make it. I've literally just crashed the GT4." And I remember being like, "Yeah, right, good one," sort of thing. And then you sent the picture through of just like, car up a verge, debris all over the road, and it was obviously a picture that said, "No, I'm definitely not joking." I was like, oh my god! I literally feel so bad that I didn't believe you. It took a picture to prove it, but that was it, and that kind of put you off the car a bit, really, afterwards, didn't it?
I think any car you've had a bump in. I mean, the repair bill on that was 22 grand, to put it into perspective of damage. And stupidly, I said to the repair company, I said, look, can you send me a breakdown, some pictures, just so I know what's been done to it, thinking it wasn't that bad. Anyway, long story short, they sent the pictures through, and from the bottom of the windscreen, they'd cut off everything forward of that. So I literally got pictures of my car, and they just cut the whole front off it, which was a bit sort of, it doesn't fill you much confidence when someone sort of, stitched it back together. And we looked the part from the outside, but it was never the same car after that. So had to go, unfortunately.
Dear. I remember.
How about you, Lee?
Well, I remember one time, this one wasn't me. I'd not been at the magazine too long, and there was we were doing a photo shoot with a 997 GT2, and the owner, top man by the way, really nice guy, but we said, right, we better get some pictures of this then. And we were out some road in the countryside in the middle of nowhere, and the guy said, well, look, if you want, I'll get my drift on, and we'll get the back end out around this corner if you want, if you don't mind, doing a bit of spotting. And I was like, all right, fine. So, I'm in situ, photographer's there ready to shoot, and he comes along and he came barreling into this corner, turn. It was all kind of going fairly well. And then when the road started straightening up, like the car just showed no sign whatsoever of straightening up. And he just carried on the lock, basically, and then went up this verge, slapped down on the front, like almighty whack. I remember thinking, this has not gone to plan at all. And in any case, fair old whack. He's jumped out, gone and looked at the front of the car. I've run to the front of the car, had a look. Like the near side front is just hanging off from like the headlight all the way down, the splitters in a million pieces up the road. And he just laughed and he said, well, I guess that's the photo shoot over today then, boys, isn't it? And we were just like, what? And I just remember driving home just thinking, again, not been in the game too long, just thinking these Porsche folk are mental. This guy's, had a big old whack on this 997 and laughed about it really. But I don't know. It happens, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I've had a bit of trailer drama. Has anyone ever had a bit of trailer drama?
Yeah, not too bad. Only sort of a bit twitchy, but I've seen some big ones. Go on, Joe.
I had two in quite close succession. So someone asked me to move a boat for them, which was just sort of locally from one side of the town to the other. And apparently they'd just done all the bearings and all this. So the whole thing's been serviced. Anyway, I was on my own as well, and I had this big sort of twin cab pickup thing at the time. And I basically approached one of the little roundabouts in Poole. And as I approached the roundabout, I heard this little whack behind me, and this wheel and tyre bounced about 30 foot in the air across the roundabout in front of me. And then as I looked at my rearview mirror, I realised the boat was kind of dragging along the floor on its trailer, and it kind of hit the deck. And this boat actually belonged to the local lifeguard club, so it had like lifeguard all down it and was quite an official bit of kit. And the whole wheel is only a single axle trailer, so this wheel and tyre overtook me and literally went flying off in the distance. So that was quite amusing. And then probably a year or two before that, I used to do a bit of drag racing with the old Beetles and Subaru engines and silly things like that. And I had this great big box trailer, and that was a twin axle trailer. And I remember pulling into a services, and it was a big white trailer, and I was sort of putting fuel in the old car. And as I glanced behind me, I noticed that one of the wheels, again, completely missing, and there's like a 20, probably, I don't know, 6 or 8 foot tall down the side of the trailer, big black rubber mark where obviously the wheels come off and bounced up the side of the trailer, and God knows where, probably 100 miles before. So
driving along with two wheels, is it?
So if you ever get a wheel come through your windscreen, you'll know where it's come from.
It's out there in orbit somewhere as we speak.
Yeah, never to be seen again. So that was fun.
That reminds me of a story. Myself and my mate were doing the service on his girlfriend's car, and at the time we lived in a rented house that had a really steep driveway. It was almost like 30 degrees, really steep, and we were using the spare wheel as a source of air for bleeding the brakes.
Okay.
And we put the spare wheel, we've done what we've done with the spare wheel, put that aside, just leaning up against the fence. And then about 5 minutes later, we heard this huge bang. What the is that? Looked down, and there was this spare wheel. It has projected itself, gone down our driveway, straight over the road, hit the curb on the other side, bounced up and hit the gates and the house opposite, and actually knocked the top of the pillars off of the both gates because it had hit it so hard. And we were like, shit. So I just ran down the driveway, picked the wheel up, ran back to where we were, and then just waited until the neighbour came out looking at, like, what the fuck just happened to my gate? Oh dear. That was,
I remember, and I've got to shout out to my brother Jack here. He'll not enjoy this whatsoever, but
name and shame.
Yeah, exactly. And couple of, I don't know, this was 3 or 4 years ago now. We've gone back to the family home in Essex for the weekend just to kind of have a catch up and whatnot. And yes, my dad and I were sitting in the garden having a beer, enjoying the sun and whatnot. And then we just heard this whack, and we're like, "Whoa!" It was like a proper good crunch, And out the front of the house at the time, my brother had his it was a Honda S2000 road car, and then he's got this Clio track car, which is a kind of similar scenario to Joe and Chuck's idea, And so for whatever reason, it was parked on the road, and we've gone out there, and I don't know whether he had it in gear or what, but the S2K was parked behind the Clio, and he must have just turned the engine on whilst forgetting it was in gear. So the car has just properly lurched forward into the back of this Clio. And so Jack's just kind of sitting there in the car looking pretty pissed off about it. And, me and my dad just kind of wandered down, still beer in hand, just standing in the road, and we're just watching what was about to happen, like him get out of the car and that. Nobody said a word, and then eventually Jack's got out, like bright red with embarrassment and that, and looking at this one of his cars into the back end of the other of his cars, and the dad just going, "Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear." There was absolutely zero sympathy for it. We were ourselves. I think it just makes it even worse. But the knobhead drove one of his cars into the other, so that takes some doing, doesn't it? Really, what a knob.
That's the worst, isn't it? When you've actually dented your own car with your own car.
Well, yeah, like I don't even know, like, how does that happen with insurance? Did you get the other person's details? Yeah, I've got them here. Do you know what I mean? So
I had an old Seat Ibiza many years ago. One of the, not the very first ones, the first time when it became a Volkswagen.
Yes,
and it was a proper trusty little car. It was a 1.9 diesel. No turbo. It was a proper momentum car, but it was a great little car. And I remember parking it outside my mate's flat in Bournemouth, and went into his flat, was in there for a little while, came out. I was like, where's my car? I'm sure I parked it there. And looked down the road, and it was about 50 foot down the road with a big fucking dent in the back of it. And I think a coach had just like reversed around the corner and just shunted it all the way up the road. It was just like, how did that happen? Because there was no way that it moved like 50 yards down the road by itself with a big dent in the back of it.
Was there any CCTV or anything? Because that's the thing. We all know insurance companies, they try and wriggle out of anything, don't they, really?
Yeah.
And otherwise, how do you even go about explaining that?
I don't know. Luckily, it was worthless, and it didn't really matter. It looked practically no different to how it looked before. So,
just on a few bad luck stories, which are amusing. Me and my friend used to do a bit of car dealing back in the day, and we went to pick up this old Mark 10 Jag, like nice old thing, and knocked on the door. His wife says, "Oh, he's in the garage, just having a last look at it." He said, "Oh, we're going to have a look." So he got this old rickety garage. And there's a car is ticking over, and he's got his head in the bonnet, revving it up. And these cars have got a bad reputation for selecting drive. So we're easing away up the side of the garage, and there's not a lot of room just for this car to go into drive. And he zooms out the back of the garage in this car with his head in the engine bay, plonks it into the fish pond. And me and my mate look at it and go, "You all right?" He goes, "Oh, yeah." And we go, "See you then." And we're just walking out as the garage, should I say, just collapses. It was, I'd call it a Benny Hill, but you probably don't bet Benny Hill. But it was one of those, me and my mate sort of laughing, running down out of at his house. It was funny because we were both so tight up against the side of the garage to this Jag suddenly going off at 30 mile an hour. It was brilliant.
That would have been 250 quid on you being framed, wouldn't it?
Oh, it'd been brilliant, yeah. But our faces were a picture because we've got that, one of those, did you see that? But we legged it quite quick. But
and it's a mystery, isn't it? Why people just don't think these car dealers are trustworthy people.
We helped him a lot. We said, "Are you all right?" And they said, hurt.
Yeah.
But it's just Sundays because the other car, my mate bought his first Lotus Cortina, and we went out, and his wife says, "Oh, he'll be back in a minute." I said, "Oh, okay." So we hung around, and he'd been to the pub, and this was a full works rally Lotus Cortina Mark 1. So we get in the back, and I'm in the back of it, mate's in the front, and this guy takes off. We're in the country, and he probably had a few too many to be driving, really. And he overtook this car in a really country environment and went onto the grass and hammers it, just left it sideways drifting because he could really drive. And that was it. But I was white as a sheet when I got out the back of this car. And my mate just bought it. He said, well, if that's what it can do, I'll have it. But yeah, so avoid buying cars on Sunday lunchtimes. That's the moral behind that.
It's not good. It's not good.
It was a laugh at the time, but yeah, I did feel a bit bad.
Talking about driveway stories, I've established, I've got pretty solid evidence now that my mother-in-law cannot drive, and I left the 997 cab we had on the drive. We had like an in and out driveway, and with strict instructions that she was not allowed to park on the drive. And we were going away for a few days, and said, look, you can park on the road, and it's next to the gate, you can just walk straight in, but you're absolutely not to park on the driveway. Anyway, obviously first day in, doesn't listen to a word I say. Got back from this few days away, and the back wing was smashed in on the 997, and not looking too clever for itself. And then she rather sheepishly kind of said, "Oh, well, I had to park on the drive because I'd been and done some shopping or something on those lines," and had managed to whack the car on the way out. And it was a cab, and then it turned out the roof didn't work because the cab motors are all in that wing. So that was fun, but yeah, there's lots of stories involving my mother-in-law and banging cars up, unfortunately.
Another session then.
I'll be all night if we go on to those. I don't think she knows what a podcast is, so I can get away with that.
That's all right. He does Chuck, does he? So
no, I'm just here getting recorded.
No. Lee's not actually admitted to anything yet, have you?
Well, I mean, as someone that's trying to make a career out of people giving me their cars, I've been okay. I've been okay. There's
have you ever whacked a press car? Come on.
I haven't, but I have been rear-ended twice. One of which the whole story is
cars now, Lee. All right.
Yeah.
Here till Thursday.
Touche. So Laura, my wife, and I, we were my girlfriend at the time. We were driving along the peninsula at Sandbanks. I had a Lexus at the time, Lexi, and for Partridge fans. And we'd stopped. We were waiting for a car to leave so we could parallel park at the side of the road. We were sitting there, indicator on, and then just absolutely out of nowhere, we were shunted a couple of good few feet up the road. She's like, "What the bloody hell's that all about?" So made sure Laura's okay. I was all right, jumped out, and this lady was in this, I don't know, some Honda CR something, like people carry a thing behind. And she was apologetic straight away, said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I said, "It's fine, everyone's okay. What happened?" And she just said, "I was watching the sunset." And we were absolutely astounded because, I mean, you guys know along that peninsula at Sandbanks and that, in the evening, the sun can be pretty kind of blinding, isn't it? If you're driving round towards Swanage Way rather than coming from it. But so she's watching the sunset, but she had a 2-year-old girl in the back. And I kind of, you question people sometimes, didn't you? And you think, well, what's more important, really, a sunset or a family member? But there we go. That was that. We had to have some physio because our car was stationary. And obviously we'd been shunted up the road, so that wasn't great. Actually, Laura come off a little bit worse. And then quite literally, it was a year and a day later, and we were humming round the M25, and traffic had just kind of come to a stop ahead, as it often does, doesn't it? We all know the M25, London's car park, and we'd come to a stop again. And literally, we were talking at that moment, saying, I can't believe it was a year ago since that woman went into the back of us and wrote the Lexus off. And then, would you believe it? Shunt, and we are properly whacked up the road this time. And so it's like, bloody hell, here we go again. Made sure Laura's okay, I was okay. Managed to hobble this car over to the left-hand side of the road, and I'd kind of put the window down, pointed to the bloke behind who'd gone into me, pointed to the side, and so he'd followed us over, limped over. His car was in a right bad way. It was a people carrier again, I think it might have been a Seat. And again, apologetic straight away. Look, it was my fault. I just couldn't brake in time. I said, yeah, evidently. And so we're exchanging details and stuff. And I said, right, go on then. What's your address? And he said, I actually live on the south coast. And I was like, what? And he said, yeah, I live down in Poole. And I said to him, are you taking the piss? No. And I said, I live in Poole.
You met Joe.
Well. So yeah, exactly.
Friends ever since.
Yes, it's unbelievable. But it was literally a year apart, or year and a day apart, that we've been rear-ended. So like Laura and I have a joke now that like you're most vulnerable in a car when you're actually stationary. But
it's true.
The police come along and freed up the seatbelts, which again just weren't thinking at the time. But when the seatbelt had gone, you should obviously maybe not go anywhere and stuff. But the police come along, freed up the seatbelt. There was damage to the back of the car, but all wheels were rolling, the car could drive. And they said, we suggest if you can get home, to get home. So we drove back from London to Bournemouth at the time, and Poole, sorry. And by the time we got back, we weren't feeling too clever, so we did actually go to hospital. But a couple of days before, Laura and I were saying, we should probably, let's do something, dating wise, and we decided to do alphabet dating. And she gave me A, so I had to think. For those of you that don't know, alphabet dating, A, you have to think of something that begins with the letter A, and you go off and do that. And so we're both lying.
You might want to edit that out.
Yeah, yeah. So we're in hospital, and we're kind of put on these beds.
Oh, pennies dropped.
Oh my God, yeah.
Laura's turn for B.
Yeah, no, leave it in. It's fine. And, so no, it wasn't that. It certainly wasn't that, unfortunately. Definitely edit that.
Best bit of the podcast, that was.
Definitely edit that out. So yes, to return to some sort of decorum. we got to hospital. We were lying on these beds in these neck braces, and I'd kind of tentatively shouted over to Laura,
"Love you."
Do we mind if we count A as A and E? Which didn't go down too well, to be fair. But
like it though.
Yeah.
Cheap
yeah.
night.
Well, maybe the other one was the better story. Yeah. Oh, mad.
When you got hit up the rear end, did you have that time where you looked in the rearview mirror and just saw them coming towards you?
No, I didn't at all.
Oh, haven't you?
No,
I had that. Yeah, I had a Corrado VR6 and was on the A31 coming home from Southampton and going down one of the hills, and I broke. It was typical Friday afternoon. It's always quite busy. Traffic sort of ebbs and, what's the word? I don't know. Comes and goes, and broke as we were going down the hill. And all I could see, I looked in my rearview mirror, and there was a guy in it was like a Nissan four-door saloon just coming towards me sideways. And he was kind of looking out the sideways mirror with this look of pure and it smacked into the back of me. But that length of time where you could see his eyes, it felt like a good couple of minutes, and it was like slow motion as he just
what's the saying by Walter Rowe, isn't it? The best drivers get flies on the side of their car.
Yeah,
maybe not in this case. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it was proper. I can still see what he looks like now. You know, this is 10, 15 years ago, and I can still see his face now.
Yeah. How did he try and explain it? Did he try and pass it off to you or something? Can you imagine that?
No, he didn't. No, he accepted his responsibility. I think he was mucking around on his phone or something.
Oh, right. It would have been better if he'd have jumped out and just said to you, "What do you think you were doing there, mate?" What?
I've had one exactly like that. I was in a car park. This was, in the late 80s. And it was a college car park, and this girl reversed into me. And she tried to blame me for it. I was like, no, it can't be. It was your fault. What? Yeah, some of the stories that some people come up with.
How did that get settled then? Because that's 6 to 1 afternoons and the other or whatnot.
I can't remember. A long time ago. Yeah, too long. Yeah.
There was. I have one more slight story. I apologise because Chuck and Joe know about this. I think we've discussed it over a curry or something before. But I'd gone over to the States, was doing some bits and pieces out there. I was at the wheel of a 993, and I nearly shat my pants in a 993 is the story. And driving this car, the short version of it is the photographer had gone ahead with the owner, and they were going to a location, and I'd follow them, and in the meantime kind of get to know the car. And we were meant to be following this truck, and we were sitting at one of these traffic lights, and you just, you get a tummy rumble. And I thought, oh, it's a bit different. And it takes me a little bit of a time to adjust to the diet out there, shall we say, a little bit different to here. And then I proceeded to lose them in LA traffic. So I had absolutely no idea where I was. So I've pulled over, and it's getting towards situation critical. And I've rang the photographer and said, look, where are you guys? And by the way, I need a pit stop sharpish. And he said, well, look, there's we're just up the road from a petrol station. We'll pull in there. I'll send you the pin on WhatsApp, and then just meet us there. It's about half a mile away from where you are, we think.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, yeah, cool. And then obviously in America, as every quarter of a mile, isn't there? There's traffic lights, and obviously every traffic light was staying red for minutes on end. And got to the petrol station, it was closed. So I frantically called the photographer again. I'm like, look, the petrol station's closed and you're not here, and I really, really need to stop now. And he said, oh, yeah, it was closed. We've just ambled up the road. It's about a mile away, half a mile or whatever it was. We'll meet you there instead. And, oh, my God, I remember they were not a mile away. I don't know where they'd gone, but it was ages away. And I remember sitting at a red light, left foot depressing the clutch and my foot trembling. I needed the loo that much. And then in the end, I just thought, I cannot wait to meet these guys. I saw a restaurant. I've just dived in, chucked the 993 in front of this restaurant, and I've hobbled through. There's a big sign on the door, our toilet or our restrooms for customer use only. Obviously, your moral compass goes out the window at such times of angst. And obviously got to the loo, that was it. And I remember my wallet and whatnot was with the photographer. And obviously I thought it'd best be polite to buy a drink or whatever. And but didn't have the money on me, so I had to felt really rude, walked out, and head bowed after spending a lot of time on their toilet. And I thought, I'm just going to quickly get in this 993 and Scarpa. And I tried to start that 993 and the bloody thing wouldn't start. I was outside this restaurant having just absolutely decimated their restrooms, bless them. And
probably had shit in the carb.
Well, it was, but it was rather that than the 993. But this 993, it was, just low mileage, literally similar to your 997, Chuck. It had lived a better life than I had, and it was not the sort of car that you wanted to start redecorating,
defaced it.
We say, yeah. But they're good moments, aren't they? When to look back on, it's good pub talk.
No, it's been good, lads. I've learned a lot today. Alphabet dating. I'm straight on to A.
I reckon you're going to be on A for quite a while, aren't you, Chuck? Oh, that's funny. But on a serious note, just so that we can, not have this podcast going completely X-rated. Interesting, because obviously we know Linda. She's quite into the Porsches like you are as well, isn't she? Like, She's
not a car fan, but when I had the 996, she used to drop me off at the station at 6 o'clock, and I watched my car drive away, and she loved it, absolutely loved it. So yeah, I didn't see it really. She had it weekends and all sorts. So yeah.
That's always half the battle, isn't it? When her ladyship is into the cars, it certainly makes owning them easier.
Yeah, no, it's good. She likes the SC, but she's always got this thing that he'll run away with you. And I said, well, that's your right foot more than the devil, but if it was powerful cars are evil.
Well, we'd mooted tentatively the idea of getting our better halves on here. Maybe one time when we're completely out of content. Ideas. And,
I'm trying to think what Sarah's called it. What is it? Desperate Porsche wives.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
You need to edit it a bit though.
Yeah.
Girls like a couple of gins.
Oh.
They might play alphabet spaghetti as well.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'd end up being more embarrassing than what this podcast has turned out to be quite honest with you. But,
I just heard alphabet.
We should, maybe get you and Linda involved, because I'm sure you'll be back on here anyway, Chuck. You're good value on here, and we just want to know by then what your latest idea is, because you seem to be wanting to change your cars every week. You never actually do, of course, but
no, it's could do a little chat around suspensions. The next thing on the SC, so that's going to be the next fun of finding out what to do. But I just want to drive it. I just could do another trip to Wales if we can do that later in the year. It'd be nice.
Yeah,
just get in and use them, really.
Yeah,
definitely overdue for another decent driving trip. I think. I mean, we had we had a couple of decent ones back to back. We did Wales, and then we did the Swiss Alps Italian type runs, and
just
both
brilliant. Good. Just using the cars every day was fantastic.
That's what they're for, isn't it? So,
brilliant.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, Chuck, we shall collectively leave you to go and investigate the merits of alphabet dating.
Can you jump letters? Just generally jump. Okay, well, thanks, guys. Enjoyed it. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's always a shame to talk about cars you've lost, but it was fun. Thank you.
It's our pleasure, mate. Like we say, we'll get you back on here. You'll be a welcome panellist on Road to Redline for many episodes to come.
Yeah, look forward to it. Many thanks.
Cheers, Chuck.
Cheers now.